Tonight, our first in 5 series, I want to deal with just the economy. They've told us that we have to spend our way out of debt. And you know what? People used to say that, and it did make sense for a while. I mean, people say that in a way they're absolutely right. I mean, you have debt, right? I have debt. We all do. We have debt with our cars. We have debt with our homes. But at some point, you get to, no matter what kind of money you could make millions of dollars. You could be Bill Gates. And you get to a point where you cannot pay off your debt. It doesn't matter how much money you make. Well, are we there yet? Let me ask you this. I'm going to show you this clock. This is our U.S. national debt clock. This is phenomenal to me. This is our national debt, $38,000 per citizen. But that isn't all of it. You've got another $23,000 down here. Can you scroll up, please? Look at the bottom of the screen. There's the unfunded liabilities. The unfunded liabilities. Look at this. Keep coming up, keep coming up, keep coming up. Here it is, unfunded. This is Medicare, Medicaid, all this stuff. Unfunded liability per citizen, $191,832. Now, here's my number one question, and I'm going to give you a possible answer. But I want you to ask this question first to yourself, and then you take it to Washington. Is there any way to tax and spend out of these numbers, just the unfunded liability, $191,000 per citizen? The answer is no. Then that would lead you to question number 2. Why would anyone want to add more spending? If the answer is even close for you, remember, on Friday, the president took our 10-year deficit, the deficit he'll have created, the White House own estimate, he's taken that from $7 trillion to $9 trillion. Now, $10 trillion is what the CBO tried to tell us 6 months ago was reasonable, and everybody badmouthed them, the administration. No, that's unreasonable. Why would we even listen to those clowns? Well, how can the administration be this wrong in 6 months, and no one in the media is even really talking about it? Nobody is holding this man's feet to the fire. How can they be this wrong in 6 months and then expect us to believe them on the rest of the spending? Second question. What would your motivation be to spend us into oblivion? Do you have one? Well, here's Charles Payne. He's from the Fox Business Network. Hey, Charles, how are you? Also the CEO of Wall Street Strategies. Okay, before we get to what your motivation would be, let's go over this. Okay. In common sense, I have another number because I have future liabilities of $99 trillion. Right. Okay. This is a conservative estimate.
That's very conservative right there. I mean, I've seen well over $100 trillion by many different organizations.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So the conservative estimate is every citizen of the U.S. Right. owes $191,832.
And this number, as you can see from the clock, keeps moving at a pretty rapid pace. Yeah.
How can we ever pay that off?
Well, you mentioned tax and spend. So that's sort of like being on a diet and having a salad and then having a bowl of ice cream.
Right.
They can tax us and get the money. And, I mean, I think we'd have to go up to something like an 80% tax rate. Something like that, but they can't keep spending, that's for sure, and that's the one problem we know Washington has always had.
Okay, so here's the liability per citizen just for the U.S. unfunded liabilities that we already have. Our private debt per citizen is about $23,000.
Right. Okay. About $100,000 per household. Yeah.
Correct. Our official unemployed is 14 million. The actual unemployed is $18 million. Let's go down here. Here's this number is phenomenal to me. U.S. government bailouts is now almost $12 trillion. That's money we didn't have.
And we keep patting ourselves on the back for that one.
Correct. Loss of U.S. household wealth. What does that mean?
Just what we've lost. So, what our homes are worth, what what we had in the bank, everything.
What is this staggering number?
That's the credit derivatives. That's the thing that Warren Buffett's been warning us about for about a decade. That's really still that toxic, scary, off the balance sheet stuff.
What does this mean? 644 trillion?
Trillion dollars. That's the thing that
this
they
want to. This is the toxic stuff.
This is that stuff that's floating out there that we're afraid of that.
We're crippling our economy with almost $12 trillion, and there's 644 trillion left
out there, just floating around.
Okay. Can we go down here? Here we have the defense and wars. We have the interest on debt, $306 trillion.
and I think that's a conservative number.
I believe that number is, I believe that
this
is
is for
almost
the
$1
war.
trillion.
Okay, yeah.
I believe this is the interest on the debt. This is $1 trillion a year by 2018. Keep coming
and
down.
again, Glenn, I think it's going to be a lot more than that, a lot sooner.
Medicare fraud. This is fraud. Calendar year to date, Medicare fraud, $38 trillion. U.S. budget deficit. Well, I don't even know what number that is. What is that? What is that?
We got a million, billion, trillion.
That's got to be inaccurate. Spending a debt per citizen. There's our U.S. national.
Right.
There's our U.S. national debt. Okay. Why would you add more spending to this?
At the end of the day, the goal is, I think, my opinion of the administration right now is to make the government powerful, more powerful than anything else, to push out corporations, to push out the power of corporations, even to push out the power of the other branches of government, to make our citizens solely dependent on the government.
Hang on, Charles. You're saying you believe that this is to push out the other branches of government as well?
Certainly, there's no doubt. If you look at the czars, if you look at some of the other things that are being pushed through, I believe certainly we're going to diminish the powers of Congress. It may be a moot point if a couple of other Supreme Court justices could be appointed in the next couple of years. But certainly, I know that the executive branch is getting bigger and stronger and really all powerful.
Is there any way to pay off all of this stuff? What happens if the derivatives of the 644 trillion, let's just say 20 trillion?
Glenn,
is there any way?
That derivative thing is just such a nightmare, sort of like just thinking of asteroids coming toward this planet, and really you just got to hope it just doesn't hit. I don't know how we deal with that, but again, if somehow we were to turn this economy around,
yes,
unleash the forces of free markets instead of the government competing, instead of the government first getting into healthcare and then other industries. But if we diminish the power of corporate America, if we diminish the power of free markets, this is all a disaster.
Is there, I've got to wrap this up, but real quick, is there any reason you can think of that anyone would intentionally tube us?
Tube us, no, and I would say that there's a reason to make this up keep going this way. First of all, as long as we're afraid, as long as we have this type of stuff, we're willing to let anything go through, and that's what we've been seeing so far this year.
Thank you very much.
All righty, thank you.
Back in a second.